Hi, I'm Cleona, and on the last video, the audio died on me. So this is the continuation of my money boundaries video, where I talk about helpful money beliefs, how to communicate money boundaries, my weird idiosyncrasies on how I do money so that you can feel more normal about yours. And one of my beliefs is that I am responsible for my feelings and my happiness, my actions, my intentions, but not everyone else's around me. It's impossible not to trigger or upset anyone, and the business of human relationships can be so messy. We will react to one another, and we all have our own baggage, our own protectors. I've had acquaintances throw a fit when I refuse to split alcohol bills, like during, work leaving drinks. But that's my boundary. If you're not my good friend, I don't want to pay for your 2 bottles of wine, and that's that. In the spirit of taking responsibility, I also adopt good financial behaviors, such as paying myself first or saving or investing my money first. Why and how to have helpful money boundaries? Why? The short answer is so that we can meet needs and be happy and have healthy relationships without creating resentments. We all want to thrive, be happy, peaceful, content, and we have a finite amount of money, a finite amount of time, attention. And that's just life. So it's up to us to choose what we want to give more resources to, and they're personal to us, reflecting what's okay, what's not okay, our priorities, our past conditioning, how spacious we are feeling. And for some women watching this, our hormones feed into that, our energy levels. You get the gist. How to have helpful boundaries. 3 things will be really helpful. First, to know your needs. Why? Because if you make it easy for people to understand what you want, and you're really clear and you're flexible about it, life and work can flow so much easier. Other people don't have to guess what you want, and there are many helpful ways to know needs. Tony Robbins, Josh Kaufman, Manfred Max Neef, who was a Chilean economist, but my favorite, and you probably guess if you've been watching this channel for a while, is Dr. Marshall Rosenberg's nonviolent communication. Even your inner critic is only trying to express needs to you. And Dr. Marshall Rosenberg had a beautiful quote where he said, if we don't tell people about our needs, it's so much less likely that they will be met. So by knowing our needs and expressing them, we increase our chances of our needs getting met. Then the best place for answers about whether to say yes or no to actions about your needs is this wisdom from your own body. You will learn to differentiate a full body yes from a no. And I actually saw a demonstration with a teacher called Pamela Wilson, where she says a full body yes feels like this: energizing, open, expansive, and a no can feel quite contracted like this. She also suggested to give it time because, we have conditioning and we all have egos. It also helps to know your habits, your programs, scripts, and to play with yes or no. If you say yes too easily, try to say no more often and see how that feels. And if you say yes without checking on yourself and the boss is you, and then you regret it and you bail out and cancel on your commitments at the last minute, or if your problem is not saying yes enough or no enough, just practice the opposite. But hey, if you want to get good at this, then discomfort is your friend. Say hi to it, welcome it, honor it, make space for it, and notice how your body reacts when you do the opposite. If you struggle with no, give yourself a little time to work out what your true no is, and tell the most important people in your life that you are practicing being more honest, so they expect it from you. And then they don't worry about your sudden personality change and, wondering if you've lost the plot. Doing the opposite, it's like growing, check out my biceps, it's like growing a new muscle. I have been going to the gym, and it takes time. If you can't get to a body no, then the way to check is just tell an obvious lie, like the sun rises in the west, and notice how your body reacts. That's it. It's that simple. Your body never lies. And if you struggle with guilt, I used to have that problem, there's a lot of emotional work to be done. It's an old learned habit of the mind, and maybe there is a payoff in it somewhere for you. I don't know. But there's work to be done for you. If you have a massive backlash of guilt every time you say no, and you say no kindly and clearly, and you state your boundaries, that's something to be investigated. And then I would encourage you to learn from other people's perspectives, books, podcasts, whatever. I like following people that I think are great at saying no or communicating well. Like one of the people I love is Leah Remini. She is really funny, playful, authentic, and also pretty direct. I also like Oprah Winfrey. So those are the people that I tend to think, how How would she say this? Or how would she react? And then communicating your boundaries. It's quite an art. The main principles here I found are to be flexible, to be clear that you're saying no to the action or the request, not the person, not to their needs. And ideally, and this is a tip I learned from Dr. Marshall Rosenberg, you say no without saying the word no. I know on social media there are these posts that say no is a complete sentence, but no is actually very painful to receive. We've been told no so often as children. It doesn't have a very comforting tinge to it. And when you say no, it really helps that you reinforce that the person matters to you. When people feel like you care about them, they relax. We all have such hardwired defenses. And so we really relax when we feel we matter. And when I say being flexible, what I mean is allowing the other person to also express what they want and then trying to find like a mutual solution. Like, oh, that restaurant is a bit expensive or that food is a bit too spicy, but how about we meet here? Or how about we try this cuisine? And just be flexible about the criteria. Sometimes no can just be the starting point of this is what I prefer. What about you? What do you prefer? Let's find something that works for both of us. Rather than it getting personal and combative. I have a friend who is vegetarian, for example, and she's Jane, and she won't even buy me lunch unless I eat vegetarian food. I find it to be a perfectly reasonable request, and she always reminds me when she wants to buy me lunch, hey, I'll buy you lunch if you eat vegetarian. And I want to honor her values. I respect how she spends her money, and she states her preference without anything personal in it. So you say no without even saying no, you just state your preferences. For example, thanks for asking me out to your leaving drinks, but I don't enjoy large groups. How about I cook some dinner for you and we just hang out at my home? Or how about we just grab a coffee and still celebrate and hang out? What do you think? And then finally, some of my quirky boundaries that I promised you I would share with you. So I'm not embarrassed about this anymore, but I don't really do Christmas presents or birthday gifts or even cards. I enjoy cooking for my friends. I enjoy giving them plants or gifting them a facial or an experience or a massage. I will gift children, but that's about it. I try to be really pragmatic, and I've always been anti-consumption ever since I can remember, like my teenage years. And my family have given up on, when I come from the UK back to India, usually people bring a suitcase full of chocolates and things, and my family they don't always like it, but they've gotten used to it. I just take them out for dinner. And I remind them I'm spending time with them. And I don't want to do these things just because there's an external sort of reminder like Valentine's Day or whatever. I don't think my boundaries are that quirky, but let me know what you think. And maybe leave me a comment with one of your quirky habits so we can all feel more normal. Another thing that I don't do is lending money. Unless you're very close to me, I give money. If somebody really needs it, I give it to them. And in my mind, I'm not then tracking if they're going to return it or not. And I just write it off. In my experience, it's really hard when you lend money and it's a transaction where you're expecting it back and then the other person, it's just too messy for me. And I do have people who are financially poor. For example, someone in India that asks me for money for medical help or something, I will just give it to them without thinking of it, and that's the end of that. And by the way, if there is financial abuse, all of these things that I've talked about are really general. They're really meant for like normal, everyday boundaries, not financial abuse. So examples of financial abuse are controlling or spending your money, hiding your money, ruining your credit card history, feeling entitled to your money or your assets, or like heavily criticizing your spending. If you find yourself in any of these situations, you need to get external support. The limitations and the drawbacks of boundaries. If you say no a lot, if you have very strict black and white boundaries, you run the risk of building a very wide moat around yourself. Like nothing can get in. And that's one big downside. You can only cut off so many friends or so many people. I always think it's better to have conflicts and create an environment where you can express yourself lightly, playfully, honestly. But if you have to disagree with someone, it's not the end of the world. You just have different perspectives on it. You don't have to agree with everybody. And of course, if the other person isn't getting it, then be firm and clear too. But understand that we all have our own autonomy triggers. We like to be in charge of what we do and say. So keep your requests short and punchy. No long lectures. I have people who want to process their boundaries with me and have long drawn out conversations, and I just run the other way. Life's too short and maybe you need a therapist. So the question is, how do you discern between intuition and a trauma response within yourself. And a trauma response is something that you're carrying, some past hurt that hasn't been met, that needs some spaciousness. They arise from contractions in the body, and they manifest as thoughts like, don't trust, be careful, something bad will happen, you're not safe. And true intuition is cultivated through inner work and clearing your trauma. And true intuition is a much more quieter, calmer, more open source of information where you hear insights beyond reactive emotions and survival mechanisms. So you are the best authority on yourself, and you would be able to discern, is this now a trauma response or is this coming from true intuition? And finally, we all need to engage in some, I don't know about the word healing, but some self-awareness work, sense check your own emotional repression. Are you suppressing your anger? Are you playing being nice because it's too uncomfortable to feel something? The more you work on allowing your own emotions and accepting your own shadow, so the parts of you that you want to avoid or resist, the more free and liberated you feel, and the more you will be able to ask for what you want in a more neutral way. So notice your own reactivity. Sometimes we mask our true feelings and vulnerability behind the word boundaries. And finally, I want to share some books that helped me. I link it in the description of the video. Please share books that helped you too in the comments. I wish you tons of courage, and thank you for watching.